When you walk into a room, before you've spoken a single word, people have already formed an impression of you. It happens instantly, almost unconsciously. The way you carry yourself, the pace of your steps, the expression on your face, they all speak on your behalf. Presence is the unspoken conversation that begins long before your voice enters the air. Think of a leader you admire. Often, it's not the first sentence they spoke that made you pay attention. It was how they entered, how they stood, the calmness or certainty that surrounded them. Presence is invisible yet unmistakable. It's like gravity. You can't see it, but you feel its pull. Presence doesn't come from trying to impress. It comes from alignment. When who you are inside matches what people see outside, there's a harmony that others notice. Authenticity radiates, and people sense it without needing proof. That silent alignment builds trust faster than any words could. Posture is one of the simplest but most powerful signals of presence. Shoulders back, head lifted, body grounded. It doesn't say, "I'm better than you." It says, "I respect myself and I'm here." The way you hold yourself communicates whether you're ready to be overlooked or ready to be taken seriously. Energy is another layer of presence. Some people carry frantic energy that fills the space with noise even before they speak. Others carry calmness that steadies the room. Energy is contagious, and people decide, without realizing it, whether they want to catch what you're carrying. Composure is the difference between reaction and response. A person with presence doesn't rush to prove themselves. They don't fidget under pressure. They remain centered even when the environment is chaotic. That steadiness signals strength, and strength draws respect. What makes presence so powerful is that it bypasses logic. You don't debate whether someone has presence, you feel it. It's instinctive, primal even. Our brains are wired to assess safety, confidence, and intent the moment someone arrives. Presence speaks to that ancient part of us, the part that doesn't need words to know if someone should be followed. And so, every room you enter begins listening to you before you open your mouth. The unspoken questions are already being answered. Who are you? Do you believe in yourself? Do you respect yourself enough for others to respect you? The answers don't come from what you say. They come from what you carry. Confidence is not about being the loudest in the room. It is not about dominating space, filling silence with words, or proving superiority. True confidence doesn't need validation because it comes from within. When someone is quietly confident, people lean in not because they are forced to, but because they want to. Arrogance, on the other hand, is fragile. It is the mask people wear when they don't trust their own worth. It demands attention, it pushes itself forward, it interrupts, it insists. And the irony is, the harder arrogance tries to gain respect, the more it loses it. People may nod along in the moment, but deep down, they withdraw. Quiet confidence commands attention because it doesn't ask for it. It shows up, steady and assured without the need for applause. There is power in someone who does not over-explain themselves, who does not scramble to be noticed, who carries themselves with the calm certainty that who they are is enough. We've all seen the difference in meetings or conversations. The arrogant voice dominates, but the confident one grounds the room. Arrogance provokes resistance. Confidence inspires agreement. One demands obedience, the other earns trust. That is the difference between being tolerated and being respected. Confidence is humble, not because it downplays ability, because it doesn't need to broadcast it. It knows the work speaks louder than self-promotion. Humility is not the absence of strength. It is strength under control. And that restraint, that quiet assurance, is what makes confidence magnetic. Arrogance is noisy. Confidence is steady. Arrogance inflates the ego. Confidence lifts others. Arrogance closes the ears. Confidence opens the eyes. One isolates, the other connects, and in the end, people don't follow arrogance for long, but they will stand behind confidence because it makes space for them too. Quiet confidence often looks like listening more than speaking, observing before acting, and letting actions confirm what words could only claim. It is not passive, it is intentional. It recognizes that the loudest voice is rarely the most impactful. Influence is not measured by volume, but by presence. The greatest leaders, mentors, and guides in life are rarely the ones who announce their greatness. They don't walk into rooms needing to prove themselves. They already know who they are. And when you know who you are, you don't need arrogance to protect you. Confidence becomes your shield. We live in a world addicted to noise. Notifications buzz, voices compete, opinions clash, and movement never stops. In the midst of all this chaos, stillness becomes a rare and powerful force. When someone is calm, composed, and unshaken, they stand out more than the loudest voice in the room ever could. Stillness is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is the discipline to remain centered when everything around you demands a reaction. It takes far more strength to hold your ground in silence than to rush into action driven by panic. Calmness is control, not of others, but of oneself. When a leader is still, people notice. It's not the absence of activity, it's the presence of composure. It reassures others that even when things seem uncertain, there is someone steady enough to navigate the storm. Stillness is like an anchor. In turbulent waters, people look for something that doesn't drift. Think of a crisis. The person who shouts, panics, or flails doesn't inspire confidence. The one who remains calm, who speaks only when necessary, who breathes before acting, That's the person others trust. In chaos, calmness is not just strength, it is authority. It signals, I am not ruled by circumstance. A stillness creates space for clarity. When you are calm, you can see details others miss. You listen more deeply. You respond more wisely. The frantic rush of noise clouds judgment. The quiet of stillness sharpens it. That is why the calmest people often make the best decisions. Stillness also draws attention. In a noisy room, silence makes people turn their heads. A pause in speech makes people lean forward. Stillness has weight. It is magnetic. It doesn't compete for attention, yet it commands it. Where noise demands, stillness invites. Calmness is contagious. When you carry stillness, others feel it. An anxious group settles in your presence. A heated discussion cools. A restless crowd steadies. People instinctively mirror the energy of the one who seems most grounded, and that is where influence quietly grows. The world will always have noise, but those who can master stillness will always carry authority. Not because they say the most or shout the loudest, but because in their calm, people find confidence. And in their stillness, people find strength. Before a word is spoken, the eyes speak. Eye contact is one of the oldest and most universal forms of human connection. It doesn't matter what culture, language, or background you come from. The moment two people meet each other's gaze, something is exchanged. It can be comfort, it can be trust, it can be power. Genuine eye contact is not about staring, it's about presence. When you look someone in the eye with sincerity, you are saying without words, I see you, and you matter. That simple act has the power to break barriers faster than any polished speech ever could. People don't just want to be heard, they want to be seen. Steady eye contact signals confidence. Not the kind that tries to dominate, but the kind that says, I am secure in who I am, and I'm not afraid to meet you as an equal. It's a quiet but powerful statement. When you avoid someone's gaze, it can feel like avoidance. When you hold it with calmness, it feels like strength. Respect flows in both directions. When you give someone your eyes, you give them your attention. And when you receive their gaze, you acknowledge their presence. This mutual exchange builds a foundation of trust. It says, I respect you enough to give you my focus. Trust begins not in words, but in that silent recognition. Think of the times you've spoken to someone who was distracted, eyes darting everywhere else. The words may have been polite, but the message was clear. You weren't important in that moment. Now think of someone who looked directly at you, listening fully. The words might have been simple, but the impact was unforgettable. Eye contact also carries responsibility. It reveals authenticity. A person who cannot meet your gaze may be hiding uncertain or insincere. A person who holds it too long without warmth may be trying to control rather than connect. But the right balance, steady, genuine, human, builds bridges faster than anything else. In leadership, eye contact is a tool of reassurance. When uncertainty fills the room, a leader who looks people in the eye and remains steady communicates, we will be okay. It is a way of transmitting confidence without speaking. And often it is exactly what people need most. The eyes are often called the windows to the soul, and for good reason. They reveal intention, emotion, and truth in ways words cannot. To meet someone's eyes with respect and sincerity is to connect with them at a level beyond language, a connection that lingers long after the conversation ends. Long before you speak, your body has already told a story. Posture is the first sentence you deliver without opening your mouth. The way you stand, the way you sit, the way you walk. It all signals something about how you see yourself and, in turn, how you expect others to see you. A slouched back, lowered head, or folded arms often communicates uncertainty or withdrawal, even if that's not the intention. On the other hand, an upright stance, shoulders relaxed yet strong, and a steady presence say, I belong here. Posture does not lie. It reveals what you carry within yourself, whether you want it to or not. Posture is not about stiffness or performance. It's about alignment. When your body is balanced and open, it shows that you are comfortable in your own skin. People instinctively read this as confidence. And because humans are wired to respond to cues of safety and strength, your posture influences how others respond to you before a word is spoken. Think of someone entering a room with their head high, shoulders back, and movements grounded. Even without speaking, you sense they carry authority. Now think of someone entering with their gaze down, shrinking into themselves. The difference in perception is immediate, though nothing has yet been said. Posture also shapes your own state of mind. The body doesn't just reflect what you feel, it reinforces it. Standing tall can make you feel taller inside. Expanding your chest can open space for deeper breathing and clearer thinking. How you hold yourself can shift not only how others see you, but how you see yourself. In moments of pressure, posture becomes a declaration. A firm stance communicates resolve. A relaxed openness shows composure. People look for these signals unconsciously, deciding whether they can rely on you based on how you physically carry your presence. Posture is leadership in physical form. It's important to remember that posture is not about pretending. Forced poses feel hollow, and people can sense the difference. Real presence comes from posture that is natural because it reflects inner confidence. When the inside and outside align, the message is effortless and authentic. Every room you enter reads your posture before it hears your voice. It is the language of self-respect, the signal of belief, the frame through which every word you speak will be interpreted. To carry yourself well is to silently declare, I value myself and I am ready to be valued. Respect is rarely earned in a single moment of brilliance. It is built over time through steady actions that prove reliability. Flashy gestures may catch attention, but they fade quickly. What lasts is the assurance that someone will show up again and again in the same dependable way. Consistency communicates integrity. When your words align with your actions and your actions align with your values, people know they can trust you. One dramatic display cannot replace the quiet strength of being reliable. Trust is not granted by spectacle, it is granted by repetition. Flash can be impressive in the moment, but it is also unpredictable. People may admire it briefly, but they hesitate to rely on it. Reliability, on the other hand, creates stability. It tells people you can count on me not just once, but every time. That predictability is the foundation of respect. Think of relationships, teams, or leaders. The ones who inspire the most confidence are not those who occasionally deliver a grand gesture. They are the ones who consistently follow through, who keep promises, who show up prepared. Their strength is not in what they do occasionally, but in what they do continually. Consistency also builds credibility because it requires discipline. Anyone can impress once, but it takes character to maintain standards day after day. The steady reliability becomes a kind of quiet power. People may not notice it immediately, but over time, it defines your reputation. Flash often seeks applause. Consistency rarely asks for it. Yet the applause of consistency is deeper. It is respect, loyalty, and trust that endure long after the spotlight fades. Flash may win attention, but consistency wins devotion. In moments of uncertainty, people don't look for drama. They look for someone steady. The one who has shown up reliably before is the one they trust to show up again. This is how respect compounds over time, small, steady actions building into an unshakable foundation. Respect, at its core, is not earned by spectacle, but by dependability. It is not the single bright spark that earns trust, but the steady flame that keeps burning. In the end, consistency outshines flash because it endures, and endurance is what people remember. In many rooms, the loudest voice tries to take control, but influence often belongs to the quietest one, the listener. True listening is not passive, it is an act of presence and respect. When you listen deeply, you do more than hear words. You acknowledge another person's humanity, and that acknowledgement creates trust. Listening is a form of leadership because it shifts the focus from self to others. A leader who listens shows humility, signaling that wisdom does not always come from the top, but often from the people closest to the ground. This makes people feel valued, and when people feel valued, they give their best. Deep listening uncovers what others miss. It reveals fears hidden behind confident words, ideas buried beneath hesitation, and emotions that shape decisions more than facts ever could. The one who listens closely often holds insights no one else sees, and with those insights comes influence. People naturally gravitate toward those who make them feel understood. Listening creates this pull. When someone truly listens to you, you feel a bond that goes beyond information. You feel seen, heard, and respected. That bond becomes the foundation of influence because people follow those they trust. Listening also de-escalates tension. In conflict, people often repeat themselves not because they want to win, but because they don't feel heard. A leader who listens deeply cuts through the noise, allowing emotions to settle and solutions to emerge. Calm authority is born from the ability to hear what others cannot say. The discipline of listening requires patience. It means resisting the urge to interrupt, advise, or showcase your own knowledge. It requires setting aside ego long enough to understand. That restraint is powerful because it demonstrates control over oneself. And people respect those who lead by example. In a world full of constant speaking, those who listen stand out. They don't need to dominate the room because the room eventually turns toward them. Their words carry more weight, not because they speak often, but because they have listened enough to know when to speak and what truly needs to be said. The most influential leaders are often remembered less for what they said and more for how they listened. Their ability to absorb, reflect, and respond with wisdom creates loyalty that no speech alone could earn. Leadership begins with listening, and those who master it quietly shape the direction of the room. Integrity is not declared, it is revealed. Words can promise, appearances can impress, but it is the unseen choices, the ones made in quiet moments with no audience, that define who you truly are. Those choices, though invisible at first, eventually shape the reputation that follows you everywhere. The measure of character lies in consistency between private and public behavior. Anyone can act honorable when others are watching, but integrity shows when the spotlight is gone. Do you hold the same standards in the small decisions as in the big ones? Do you honor commitments when there is no reward for doing so? Actions without an audience are the purest reflection of values. They are free from performance, free from external pressure, free from the desire to impress. What you choose in those moments tells the world what you actually believe, whether you intended to or not. People notice more than you think. Integrity has a way of leaving traces. A small act of honesty, a quiet refusal to cut corners, or a simple respect for others when it would have been easier to ignore them. These moments accumulate. Over time, they build a reputation that no speech could create. The absence of integrity is equally visible. When someone acts differently depending on who is present, trust erodes quickly. Others may not catch every inconsistency, but they feel the gap between words and actions. That gap is where respect is lost, and once lost, it is rarely recovered. Leaders who embody integrity don't need to declare their values. Their behavior makes it clear. Team members watch how they handle setbacks, how they treat those with less power, how they act when shortcuts are tempting. Those silent examples influence more deeply than any motivational speech. Integrity is not about perfection but alignment. It is the willingness to act according to principle even when it costs something. Each time you do, you reinforce trust. Each time you compromise, you weaken it. The strength of integrity is built one unseen choice at a time. What you do when no one is watching eventually becomes visible in the way others trust you, respect you, and choose to follow you. Integrity leaves a mark without noise, proving over and over that silent actions carry the loudest message.